everyone, welcome to Pawsitive Tales ELC Podcast with me, Jennifer Riveros. Today I'm so excited to have a teacher with us again, so please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Osvaldo Gomez, Mr. Gomez here at Elizabeth Learning Center. I teach high school English, 11th grade and 10th grade, and I've been here for 26 years. That's a long time. That's a long time.
Were you a student at ELC before?
I was not. I actually did grow up in the neighborhood. I grew up in Bell, which is my dad's house is still 2 blocks behind Chuck E. Cheese, right? And on Crafton, and I went to Bell High School. I graduated in 1994. And then straight from there, I went to Cal State LA, and I graduated in 99. And then 3 weeks after graduating from Cal State LA, I got a job in the middle school here at ELC, and I've been here ever since.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's
So
the
you
only
have
school I've
all
ever
these-
been at.
Oh, that's so cool, mister. Our introductory question, why it is your favorite book?
My favorite book. That's always a tough question because there's just so many, you know? It's like asking, like, which is your favorite movie? There's just so many. What's your favorite song? There's so many. I think what makes books my favorite is that after you're done reading it, it stays with you.
Yes.
Like for days, weeks. It's still like it leaves something in you that you're still thinking about it a week or two afterwards. And I think if I think back of books that did that for me, I'd have to say that George Orwell's 1984 really affected me. After I finished reading, I stopped. Like I was just sitting still. Like I can't believe I just read what I just read.
Yeah.
My wife loves old movies, so I have to sit there and watch old movies with her. So she showed me a movie once called East of Eden, and I thought, hey, that's a book. That's a book by John Steinbeck. So back then I was teaching AP English Literature, and one of the things that I always did with that class was that we have to read at least one really thick book, and that book is like 500 pages. So I chose it that year, and I'd never read it before, and it was just one of the best books I've ever read. I loved it. The characters to this day, it's one of the best books that I've ever read. And then the only other one, not the only other one, I'm sure there's others, but the one that comes to my mind is in college, one of the best styles or genres of books that I used to like to read was books written by African American authors. And so The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison it just left me spellbound. I just couldn't believe it. Her style of writing is just so wonderful. It's poetry, it's art, and it's one of those books that it stays with you. Yeah.
That's a great point. I also believe that my favorite books are the ones that I can think like later after I read the book. The ones that teach me something or that change my mindset on something.
Yes.
Because I believe that that's the purpose of reading all these stories, having something that stays with you in each story, at least a little bit. You remember at least a little bit of every book.
Yeah, and and the opposite is also true. There's also books that once you start reading it, you don't really find a connection. There's books that I just didn't finish reading because I didn't really.
Yeah.
Okay,
It happens to me too.
Yeah.
If I'm like 200 page in a book and I'm like, I probably don't remember what the first chapter was about. Probably I'm not finished.
There was a book that I read that I started to read once, and it's a book that everyone just praises and hails as one of the best Mexican American literature books, one of the best Chicano examples of Chicano literature, and it's Reign of Gold by Victor Villaseñor.
I know.
And I get why people like it. I did not like the way he writes. And it frustrated me so much that I was about 200 pages in and I stopped. And to this day, I have not finished reading that book because I could not finish. I didn't like the way he wrote.
Yeah. People don't usually talk about how important it is. This like how the writer writes the book.
Yes.
Because I was reading a book and it has like so much, like the story is so much. It has so much potential. It has everything to succeed. And it's absolutely a book that I would like, but the way that the author does it is like it bores me so much. It's like I want to read your story, but I just don't like
the way
it.
you wrote it, the way you created it, it's just not. I can't do it. It's like the cafeteria food. They serve pizza here, but you're not. It's not memorable pizza.
It's not the same pizza.
But you go to a place that has really good pizza, and you're like, that place is good pizza.
Exactly. Okay, so from what I'm hearing, Mister, you have read a lot of books. Was it something that started when you were very young, or it started more into your life?
I think I was very young. Like my father was always my father. My parents are Mexican. They're Mexican immigrants, and my mother was always a good student. She was actually always one of the best in her class. So much so that there's an old black and white picture of her in elementary school meeting the president of Mexico at the time. Because she was like Miss Smarty Pants, right?
Wow.
Her smarts though were in numbers and in calculations. My dad was always a reader. He loved to read, but my dad actually dropped out in the 6th grade. When he was in the 6th grade in Mexico, he got some small job helping at a gas station. But in his mind, in his 11, 12-year-old mind, the little pesos that he was getting was like, why do I need school if I can get money? So he actually dropped out in 6th grade, which is the one biggest regret in his life. But he was always a voracious reader. So me, growing up, I always used to see him reading a book, and every weekend he would read the newspaper. And one of the sections in the newspaper was the comics, right? And I would always look for the comics because I was a kid. They were colorful, they were cartoons. So I would love to read the comics. I read all the comics, and I think that was one of my first invitations toward literature, because graphic literature is still literature, So my dad, being a good reader that he would always show me, he would say, mira esto, like read this, like this is really good, this is a good example of. And so we always had books in our house. The other thing that really kind of catapulted me towards reading was the library. I loved going to the library as a kid because of all the kids' books, they're colorful and you read them. My parents were always working, so when I would leave school, there'd be nobody at home. So instead of going home, I would go to the library and sit there for an hour and a half and read a little bit. So it was from a young age, a very young age, and I just always liked storytelling, and I've just been a reader ever since.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah. That's so cute. I love when parents encourage their kids to do things that they enjoy with themselves, but the kids also enjoy.
Yeah.
If you see that your kid likes something that you do, definitely encourage them to follow.
Definitely.
It gives that kid also, of course you like the hobby, but you also see it as a connection with your parents. So it's really sweet. It is.
I think, and I'm lucky enough to be doing that to my own kids too. So.
So you're teaching your kids like literature? Do they like to read?
They do. Like I have 2 kids. My daughter's 18. She's going to be 19, and she's off in college. But we always made sure that she had something to read. My son is 18. He's autistic, so even though he's 17, his mind is more like 6 years old. But even then, he likes small kid books, like level 1 type books. And he'll open them up and he'll like read slowly, and he likes it. That's a win, it's reading, it's literature.
Yeah. I hate when people don't understand how important kids' books are.
Yes.
Like in literature, those are, I believe, one of the best books to read ever. Even if
all
you're
the time,
4 years old, 18 years old, 5 years old.
Start them young. Start them young. Take them to the library.
Exactly. So, would you say that your father inspired you to read, or there was another person in your life?
I would say that my father was the initial inspiration. He showed me the way. Throughout my life, though, there have been other people that have inspired me too. Like my middle school, my 8th grade English teacher was really good at showing us interesting books. Not even assigning them as a lesson in the class, just like having them and say, hey, if you guys are interested, this is a really interesting book. He had a lot of Stephen King novels, and Stephen King writes like horror novels, And I remember one weekend, Stephen King has a book called The Stand, and it's 1,100 pages long. Yeah. It's very thick. But I was so into it that I took it from my 8th grade teacher on a Friday. It was a 3-day weekend. I took it from him on a Friday. I got home and I started reading it. And I spent the whole evening reading it. I read it all the weekend. There was no school on Monday. I read it on Monday. And on Tuesday, I gave it back to him because I finished it over the weekend because I was just so into the story of that book that you just forget.
Yeah.
You just forget about life if you just get sucked into the book and you just forget about everything. You know?
Oh, absolutely. That's such a sweet story because actually my first book was also a Stephen King book.
Really? Was it?
I love Stephen King.
Which one was it? Do you remember?
It.
Because that's a massive book too.
Exactly. I was like 10, 11 years old, 12-ish.
Wow.
And I watched the movie and I was like, wow, I know that this has a book. So I asked my father, I begged my father to buy me for it, and it was my Christmas present for that year. And I remember I got it, and it was heavy.
Yes.
It's like 1,000 pages
yes.
too, in chapter 1 and chapter 2.
Yeah.
If you see it from outside, you're like, oh, that's going to take me so long. But while you're reading it, you can't stop.
You can't stop.
Exactly.
And you're almost close to the end, and you don't want it to stop.
Exactly. Like, I need to know. I need to know.
Yes. Yeah.
So, what would you say that is the books that you like to read? Like, what genre do you like to read in books?
I've always liked fiction. I've always gravitated towards fiction. I like storytelling. Like, the brain likes stories. I always tell the kids in here that you know that the brain likes stories because we all love chisme. You know, like we all love chisme, and that's a form of storytelling. You know, like you want to know what the latest chisme is, what the latest gossip is.
Yeah.
And that's another form of chisme. You go to the movie theaters to see a movie because that's a story that's being told to you. You watch that Netflix show because it's a story that's being told to you. So the brain likes stories. So I've always been like really leaning towards fiction. Lately in my adult life, I get so busy with life, you know, with home and the kids and work and everything. So I've started listening to a lot of books. I've started doing audiobooks. And I've started listening to nonfiction more in audiobooks. Like I put on an audiobook when I'm driving to work, when I'm driving back home, when I'm running errands, when I'm washing dishes or whatever. And I'm actually learning that I'm liking nonfiction because it's another type of storytelling, but it's kind of more real, and it's people's lives or things that actually happen, and that kind of adds a level that I didn't think that I would appreciate and like, and I'm starting to like that a little bit more. But I still love fiction more. Like we were talking Stephen King. He's always been one of my favorite writers, but I have not finished reading all of his books. So I have more Stephen King books I want to read.
So, are you that type of reader that prefers like the physical book, or do you have no problem with digital versions?
If I had to choose, I would choose the physical book. There's just something about holding the book and turning the pages and sitting down somewhere and just turning the page and holding it. But, you know, life being so busy that if I can listen to a book while I'm busy doing whatever, you know, driving or washing the dishes or cooking or doing stuff around the house, that I enjoy that too. Like I have no problem with that. But if I had to choose, like I prefer sitting down with the actual book. But that takes time, and who has time right now?
So, based on that answer, do you have like your own library at home, or like your collection of books?
I do. I have a lot of books that almost have they fall into two categories. It's books that I've read that I love, and that I don't want to give them. I don't want to part with them. You know, which is ridiculous because am I really gonna ever read them again? Probably not. But there's just like something about them like I don't want to let you go.
Exactly.
And then there's another pile of books that I haven't gotten to yet. You know, so I have those two books at home. But I think lately I'm starting to realize that I should probably let go of those books. Like they serve their purpose in my life. Better to like give them out or give them to the local library or hand them off to somebody. Say, hey, read this book. It's yours. But I don't know. I got to get over my fear of letting them go.
It's so hard. It's so hard. At least for me, when I had to leave Colombia, I didn't have my big library, but I had like 3 books that I really liked.
Yes.
And when I had to leave, I was like, Father, can I take my 1,000-page book, my original book? And he was like, of course not.
No, why? It's just going to be heavy with...
Exactly.
It is hard, and it's ridiculous. It's silly because you can give it away. If you really, really want it again, you can buy it again. Or you can go to the library and get it again. But it's just, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's more than just the book. It's the experience you had with the book that you now associate with that actual material thing.
Exactly.
You know, you can give away the book, you can get another copy, but there's just something about
Something about the special
Yeah.
one, the original one.
Yes.
No, moving on a little bit more about your job and what you do here at
Yeah.
school. What is your favorite book to teach?
So that's a tricky question because I used to teach novels a lot before the pandemic. After we came back from the pandemic, things were strange as far as teaching goes. I mean, things were strange, period, right?
Everywhere.
Everywhere with everyone. But just the job of teaching was a little strange. Like, how do we get back to doing this? I think for some teachers, they thought that coming back to the classroom after spending a year and a half away, we're just going to get back to doing what we did before. And it was a hard realization to recognize it. That's not the case. Like, these kids are different, society's different. So I have to admit that I really haven't taught a novel in class since we came back from the pandemic. But one thing I have done that has been very successful is to create a classroom library. So instead of giving all kids this one novel that we're all going to read, and some may like it and many will not, I wanted to create a classroom library with books that I think kids would like. So what I did is I went on the internet and I did a search for best young adult books of 2024, and I have a list, and I pulled out 10. And then I went back to Google and I switched it from 2024 to 2023, and I got my list. I pulled out some. Then 2022, and I pulled out. So I started generating a long list of really good books, and then I went to Amazon and I made a wish list. And then I got that wish list and I put it on my Facebook and my social media for family and friends to say, I want to create a good classroom library. If you guys can find it in your hearts to buy 1 book, 2 book, 3 books, they're only about $8, $9, $10 a piece, I would appreciate it. All the books on my wish list were bought. Like, my family and friends came through. I created a very nice library over there. And I think that has been one of the best things I've done, because now I can tell the kids, like, what kinds of things are you into? You might like this book, you know? Even my reluctant readers, like especially teenage boys. Teenage boys, they don't want to, Mister, this is boring, who reads it? There's books over there that I know they're going to be interested in, you know? And there's books over there that are thick, but are written in like a poetry form. It's a story, but instead of paragraphs, they're written in poems, like small little poems. And I give those, there's 1 or 2 over there that are very, very high interest, and I give those to the boys even. And I say, read this book. I know it looks like a lot, but open it up. Look, it's written in small little poems. You'll be done in a week or 2. And they're really good with it. And I've been very, very successful with those. So I haven't really taught a book yet. I want to get back to it. But that's been a success story of mine, just getting that classroom library back up.
Oh, that's so amazing. I didn't know that all of those books were selected by you.
Yes.
That's honorable, honestly. I'm
It gets them reading. I have kids finishing books that I ask them, when's the last time you finished a book from cover to cover? They'll say like 2nd grade, 3rd grade, you know? And I have kids actually finish reading a whole novel. And I tell them, you know, if there's a book out there that you want to read, let me know and I'll get it for you. And now with social media, with like TikTok, you can do like #BookTalk, right? Right? They come to me and say, Mister, can you get this one? And I'll say, sure, let's get it. And some of those books are series, so they finished part 1, they want part 2 now. They finished part 2, they want part 3 now. My thing as a teacher is like, whatever gets you reading, whatever gets you reading. And I've had a lot of success with that. Not complete success. There's still kids that don't want to. Yes, I'm telling you, like, you don't know what you're missing, but you do what you can. You know.
That's so cool. Actually, I'm going to skip to what I believe is like the last question in all the episodes. Now that we're talking about this, what is something that you will say to someone who doesn't like to read, whether it's a student or a parent or another teacher that doesn't like to read? What would you tell that person?
I always tell them. I always try to find what they like. You know, I tell them that reading is like any other skill. It's like riding a bicycle. The more you do it, the better you get at it. You have this idea. I tell them that we live in a society that is very fast. Your social media posts are fast. Everything, the things that you read are small and fast. But there's nothing wrong with training your brain to slow down. You know, let me find you a book that I think you're going to find that's interesting and give it a shot, you know. Well, the first, our classes, our periods here are about 80 minutes. The first 15 minutes are silent reading. And when the kids come in and they sit down, you know, they're like full of energy. I always tell them, okay, grab your book, now take a couple of deep breaths, leave your neighbors alone, leave your technology alone, take a couple of deep breaths, slow your brain down, force yourself into the book. Force it. Your brain right now is like, I don't want to do it, right? And I always give them the example of like, it's like washing dishes. Nobody wants to like wash dishes. Nobody likes washing dishes. But the moment you start washing dishes, you get into this rhythm. And if anybody tries to stop you in the middle of washing dishes, you're like, get away, let me finish, you know? Reading is the same exact thing. Your brain doesn't want to do it. Force yourself to open that book. And pretty soon, after a minute or two, your brain gets into this rhythm. And more often than not, I look out, like we do it for 15 minutes. Somewhere around minute 6, minute 7, I look out, and even my reluctant readers are like, they're reading. So, like, you can do it. Yeah, I know you can do it, you know. It's just this stigma, this idea that it's like a bad thing or a boring thing. And it's horrible. That's such a bad thing. You know?
Yeah, and I agree with what you say about how it's not that you always want to read. It's just that you can do it. You have the opportunity to read.
Yes.
And just put some time in it, and you're gonna find like you're gonna love it if you want.
And you're gonna find it's like when I introduce the classroom library, I tell them it's like speed dating, and I have to explain what speed dating is. And I'll explain it to you because I don't know if you know what speed dating is.
I know what speed dating is.
Speed dating is like people get together and they sit across from each other and they talk to each other for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then a little bell rings, and then they move to the next person and they talk to them for 5 minutes. Then a little bell rings, and they move to the next person. So they're just by the time the whole session's over, they've talked to all these people, right? At the beginning of the year, we have a speed reading for these books, speed dating for these books. I tell them, get the book, look at the cover, read the back to see what it's about, read a couple pages to see if you're interested in it. If it sounds interesting, write the title down. And I want you to give me about 10 titles, you know? But I always tell them that a book is like dating someone. Once you start going out with someone, you're not obligated to continue seeing them. If after a date or two, you're not really finding that connection, you're not finding that common ground, no one's forcing you to go on a third date. Don't ever go out with them again. Same thing with the book. If they're not finding after the 1 time, 2 times, 3 times that you read the book, put it back. There's plenty of other books that you can pick from.
Yeah.
You know?
That's all right.
You're not obligated. You're not married to whatever it is that you're reading. Put it back.
Yeah, I feel like many people grab a book and they're like, okay, I'm going to start reading this book because I think I will like it. And they start reading and they're like, oh, no, I don't like this book. And then they just give up.
They give up. No.
At all.
No. Just find something else.
Exactly.
Find something else.
Exactly. Just give it another chance, but with another thing.
Yes.
What would you say that is your purpose for reading?
I think I read to find out more about what it means to be a person. You know, I think the purpose of even like one of the biggest purposes of literature is to tell us something about being human. You know, even if the story is not real, even if it's science fiction, even if it's horror, like all of these things, all of these pieces of literature tell us something about what it means to be a human being. And if anything, it builds empathy within yourself, because you can read something that's complete fiction, but if you can find a connection with one of the characters in the book, if you can find their humanity, you know, that builds empathy inside of you, and it builds inside of you a sense of not wanting to judge others so quickly, because it makes you understand that everyone is in their own story in their life. Their life is a story, and you have no idea what their story is. You don't know what their background is. They may show something initially, but their whole life has been one big long story that you don't even know about. So one of the biggest gifts that being a reader has left me is having that sense of empathy. Like, you need to be patient and understanding with the people that you meet, because you have no idea what story they have behind them. You know, so I think that's actually one of the biggest things that it's left me. And what's one of the biggest things that I've tried to tell the kids too, and I see that in the kids that are big readers. The kids that are I have kids that are just voracious readers, like what's next, what's next, what's next. They're genuinely good people. You know, not to say that you can't be a good person without reading. You can be an illiterate person and be a good person, but it helps. It helps to build that into people. It's one of the things that helps to build that in people. It gives you that sense of experience of what other people's lives may be going through. So
yeah, absolutely. And even if you read stories that are not necessarily about human connections, or if you read about, I don't know, astrology, or if you read about history, or if you read about anything in any type of literature, there's a little bit of humanity in it.
yes,
Even if it's not the story, it's the writer itself, it's the book itself, it's where you find the book, it's with who teach you the book, it's all the experience of the book beyond the book itself that help you either way to build that human connection.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's ultimately that. And it makes you if it makes you a better person, it can make other people better people. You know, better humans.
Now, going again with these lessons that you have gotten from reading, is there a specific life lesson that reading has give you?
Kind of going along with that empathy and understanding, it's also taught me that not everyone is like me. You know, like people are so varied and so different that it keeps you from being quick to judge other people, because you find characters in books that you kind of see how they are, and you make a connection to someone that you know, or someone or an experience that you've had. You know, and even if you read a character that is just one of the most awful characters you've ever read, like they're just despicable human beings, it makes you pause. It makes you like wonder. Like I remember going back to East of Eden. There's a character in there that is truly one of the worst characters I've ever read. Like they're evil incarnate. They're just. But even then, it makes you think, like, what made you like that? There has to be another story. People aren't just born that way. You know, some maybe, I guess there's a chemical imbalance, but most people aren't made that way. Something happened to you, and that's the part that makes you not want to judge people so quickly, even if they're complete and awful people. You know, for better or for worse. Maybe sometimes we should be quick to judge people. I don't know, but I tend not to. You know, so yeah.
Usually, when you're a kid, you usually are not able to comprehend other people's perspectives until you're like 6 or 7, that you realize that you're not the only human in the world, that not everyone has the same life as you. So I believe that even as teenagers, sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we think that people will think the same way as us, that people will believe the same things as us. And I think it's good for anyone to find content about people that they don't like, about people that you just don't connect with, or that you just don't comprehend. It's completely fine to find an author and you're like, I don't agree with you, but I want to read your story either way.
Because in reading that story, you may find some connection.
Exactly.
Or if not a connection, you can at least understand why they're thinking the way they're thinking. You don't have to agree with it, but at least you can see the connections that they're making. You're like, okay, I can see why you're thinking that.
Yeah, I don't agree, but I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has happened to me with most of the time in classes. In English and Spanish, lit. I read stories and I'm like, oh, I will never say this myself. I would never put these words in my mouth. But I understand the author. I understand the context. I understand why they're writing that. And even if I don't, it's like, okay, humans can do something.
Yeah. And ultimately that serves as a reflection for yourself.
Yeah.
You see something like, that's not me. It helps to define who you are as a person, and it makes you a better person.
Exactly. So over a few last questions. Do you write stories yourself since you like storytelling so much?
You know, I used to. When I was in high school, I started writing short stories, and I actually wrote some that were published, like in a college literary magazine, you know.
That's so cool.
And I loved it. It was so good. It was such good. You know what it was? It's therapy. It was such good therapy. Because when you're a kid, when you're young, you have all these emotions and thoughts inside of you. And you need to find some kind of outlet to let them out. And writing was really good for me. So I did short stories. I did some poetry. But I did poetry first, which is just some dumb teenage poetry, you know. But I moved on to short stories, and I liked short stories. And so I did a couple of those. As I got older, I didn't write short stories anymore. I ended up just like writing for the sake of writing. I did a blog. I think I still have it. It's still up. And just to write my thoughts, you know, and post them. I don't do that as much as I'd like for the same reason, like you just don't have the time. But even then, that sounds like an excuse. Like you can make time. You can make time, you know. But I love writing. I love writing. I don't do it as much as I used to. I need to get back to it. Mr. Cardona, our Spanish teacher, always tells me that I should get back to it because he's read some of my stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of finding that dedicated time to say, okay, you're going to sit down and you're going to write for the next 15, 20 minutes, no matter what. And I should do that.
Writing is it's something that people always recommend in therapy for most people. Like journaling, it's so good. Like it's one of the best things that you can do for your life. If you can write about something that came to your mind, what you're feeling, what other people are going through, what you want to say to the world but you can't, that type of stuff. Like just writing, you're just telling, you're just putting words on your thoughts, and you're letting that out.
And you feel different afterwards. You feel like after you put it all on paper, and then you go back and read it, you feel better. You feel different. You feel like, I always thought it was like it's like an awful example, but I always thought it was like an exorcism, you know, like, you know, like you have these thoughts, these demons inside of you, but after you let it out, it's like you've let them out and you feel better.
That's so funny. But yeah, definitely going back to it too. Like if you go back and read your high school stories, you read it and you're like, I get what I was writing this when I was a high schooler, but it is awful, or damn, I didn't remember this, or why was I talking like that?
I've learned to be very patient with myself. Like, okay, that was. I learned to talk to my 17-year-old self, my 16-year-old self, to say, you did good, kid. You did all right. You know, like for your sake, you did all right. I wouldn't write this now, but but then you did all right, kid.
That's so cute. Now moving on to the future, like what are your plans as a reader? What books would you like to read now?
I have a list of books. Going back, I have my stack of books at home that I need to read. So I definitely need to get through those. There's books that I've always had in my mind that you can't die without reading this book. And one of them is Moby Dick, because it's so big.
Yeah.
And just for the sake of saying, I read Moby. I don't even know if I like it, to be honest, but I could say I read Moby Dick.
I want to read Moby Dick so bad too.
That one, I want to read more Latin American authors. I took a class in college called Mexican Literature in Translation. And the professor gave us the copies in English, but he said if you're able to read it in Spanish, read it in Spanish, because there's a sabor there that might not translate over to what it's saying. So I found an interest in Latin American authors that I want to go back to that. I want to read some Russian authors too, like Dostoevsky and Tolstoy. Those are on my literary bucket lists as well. So.
I was going to ask you, I just forgot. Do you read books mostly in Spanish or in English?
Mostly in English. My Spanish is okay, but I know. Going back to the example of Mexican literature. There's a book, one of the most famous books in Mexican literature. They just made a Netflix movie about it. The Juan Rulfo, right? Pedro Páramo. The guy, it's a wonderful book, fantastic book, but there's things in Spanish written there that are colloquialisms, you know, that are very specific to the region in Mexico, you know, dichos or things like that, that number one, some of them may not translate very well. No. And number two, if you're not familiar with the culture, you're going to be like, I don't understand this, you know? So that's always my fear. Like, I'm Mexican, so I can pick up on some of those Mexican colloquialisms. But if I branch out from there to say, if I pick up a book in Spanish, a Colombian author or Gabriel Garcia Marquez, are there going to be things in there in Spanish that are just going to be completely over my head? And I don't want to miss that. So I lean towards the English version. But I do that knowing that I might be missing something in the Spanish version. So.
Yeah, as a Spanish speaker, as Colombian, I have friends from all around the world. I have friends that are Argentinian, Chilean, Ecuadorian, Mexican, and it has allowed me to learn about their culture and see all these things. But even now, sometimes I don't get it.
Yeah.
But just a little bit of research about the culture and the outlook
Yeah.
and the time also, because it's not the same. My Spanish is not the same as Gabriel Garcia Marquez's Spanish.
Yes.
I was reading his story for a Spanish lit, and I was like, dude, what are you talking about?
What
I don't like, what is this word? What does this word mean? And I'm
Yes.
exactly from the same country. It's
Yeah.
not that far away from my time. So you're always going to have this barrier with
Yeah.
with language sometimes.
Yes.
It also happens to me in English. Sometimes I'm reading English. And
Honestly,
I'm
it
like,
happens. It happens to me in English too.
Yeah.
I'm reading the book. Coincidentally, the book that I'm reading now, that I've been trying to finish for the past year, is a book called Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, and it has to be one of the most difficult books that I've ever read. Not because of it's like very academic or written like in this kind of high language. It's a Western. It takes place in the 1800s in the American West. But the way he writes, he purposefully messes around with the punctuation. So sometimes there's no comma, so you just keep reading, but you're like, that sentence doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You have to go back and... So he does that a lot. And another thing that he does a lot is to use specific words that I've never heard of. Like, it's a guy that he's traveling out in the desert, and he's saying, and he saw this person standing next to, and he uses this word, and if you don't know what that word means, he doesn't explain it. But you look it up and it means, oh, it's a type of bush, or it's a type of tree.
Yeah.
Or he's describing this lady, and oh, she's wearing, and he uses this word that I've never heard of. And you have to look it up, and it's like, oh, it's the style of dress that they wore, the indigenous people back in. But he does that so frequently that I'm like, I find myself like hitting these obstacles a lot. So in that aspect, it's very difficult to read. It's one of the most difficult books I've read because he does that so often. But I find that rewarding at the end because now I know what these things are. And his style of writing, it makes you appreciate it that much more.
Exactly. That's exactly the point that I wanted to do. Even if you don't fully understand all the words and all the sentences in the book, it is an opportunity for you to learn that.
Yes.
Because if you try it and you're seeing these things and you're like, oh my gosh, I really need to understand this and I want to,
Yes.
the internet can always tell you the answer.
And that's a luxury we have now.
Absolutely.
When I was in college, I was assigned a book. The book was called The Sound and the Fear by William Faulkner. And the way he wrote it, it's multiple perspectives. It's a book where multiple people are talking, but he was so tricky that he doesn't tell you when one person stops talking and the new person starts. So I'm reading and it's like, what happened? Somewhere in here, the speaker changed. It's so weird that a new version of that book has the text in different colors so that the reader can know who's talking. But originally, it throws you and it's frustrating for your average reader. I like it. It's a challenge. But it's things like that are just, I love it. It's like fascinating. It elevates reading and writing to an art form.
For a last question, what author would you like to meet?
There are authors that I've really admired throughout my life. Stephen King, just to say thank you. Thank you for opening up the world of literature. He has a book he wrote a book, a nonfiction book about writing, about his method of writing. And I thought that was the closest thing I'm probably going to get to actually meeting him. But I would love to meet him and just to say thank you for everything.
Yeah.
There's an author, he passed away now. He was an African American author by the name of James Baldwin that I just love the way he wrote. And I would just love to meet him. He was such an intellectual person. If you go on YouTube and you find him speaking, he was so intellectual. I would love to shake his hand. And Toni Morrison, African American author, just for her lovely way of writing. I actually met Mexican author Carlos Fuentes. I met him once, and I took my dad's old copy of one of his most famous novels, La Muerte de Artemio Cruz, so that he can sign it. And I shook his hand and I called him Maestro. I said, Maestro, muchas gracias por todo lo que me ha hecho. Mi papá me introdució su literatura. para mí. Y usted es un autor, uno de los autores más favoritos de mi papá. And he took the book and he started signing it. And he said in English, I spoke to him in Spanish and he responded to me in English. He's like, your father has great taste. And he gave it back. And I said, thank you, Professor, thank you.
That's so nice. That's such a good answer. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for your
Thank you for having me. This was
Mr.
great. This was great. We should do this again sometime.
Yes, absolutely. I love talking with you, Mister. You absolutely know what you're talking about. I love talking with people that are so passionate about literature. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening, and bye.
Bye.